I felt like I lost a part of myself because of the routine.
You feel guilty that you're not doing additional things with your child.
I don't do homework with my own kids.
But mothers are actually more overprotective over their children than men are.
Cheese and wine. And Netflix. Hi, and welcome to Mom in the City. I'm Mariana, and in this podcast, we are going to discuss work, friends, careers, parenting, psychology, child development, among an occasional Netflix show, and don't forget the wine and the heels. Life is all about balance, and here we're hoping to get a little glimpse of our balanced lives.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm a working mom and an autism mom. And in this podcast, we're going to be focusing on topics that matter to women who are navigating careers, parenthood, and families who are just trying to carve out time for themselves. So I think we should just hop right into why was this podcast started, Mariana?
There's a great debate between careers and moms in careers.
It's true.
I just want to discuss some topics about parenting, early childhood education. It seems to be a very isolating field.
It definitely is. And I think a lot of the times when I go on mom groups, because I'm like in pretty much every single mom group in Brooklyn, whether it's autism related or if it's just mom related or if it's just moms talking, there's always this great debate about moms and who has it worse. Is it a stay-at-home mom or a working mom?
See, I avoid these groups. Because I am a working mom.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times I do have the mom guilt, but a lot of the times I'm really, really looking forward to get out of there.
That's true. I mean, I personally had it 3 ways. So like when my son was born, we decided it was time to take time off because it was not worth paying a babysitter in Brooklyn because it's like a lot. So we decided that I'm going to stay at home for a year. So I was like not working, not doing anything, just taking care of my kid. And then after that, COVID happened, so he didn't go into daycare. We were, trying to do daycare at 1 year old. And then we transitioned to, you need to get a job. My husband was like, I'm done paying for this. So I'm like, I go out there and I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, where am I sending my kid? Who's staying with him? So I started looking for like work from home jobs. And I found one with Test and Trace, working for the city. I did working from home with a 2-year-old with service providers coming in like 5 times a day. So I was like cleaning, working in between, and then finally I got back into the real world at 2. I sent him to daycare, and I was coming out of the house into the office and he was going to daycare. And personally, stay-at-home mom is definitely easier than the other 2.
So my experience is a little different. I had children in each one of my decades.
Okay.
I had a child in my 20s who I stayed home with, but I also went to grad school at the time and got my master's degree. And then in my 30s, I had my daughter, opened a business, had field work with my therapy, and now I had another one. So it's been an interesting ride for 3 decades.
Yeah. So how was it? How does it feel like every 10 years? Which one was the easiest? The younger you are or the older you are?
When I stayed at home with my son, I felt like I lost a part of myself because of the routine and the everyday and the same thing. I felt like just mentally drained. With my daughter, although it was a million things at the same time, opening up the business, working my cases, having a newborn, I was not as tired.
Yeah.
And I felt like this is okay. I can do this in my heels.
Yeah. And there's actually something interesting. So like a lot of parents are talking about how it's so tiring to be a parent, gray hair, no sleep. But there's actually a study that just came out 3 days ago.
Oh, wow.
And this study actually focuses on how parents' brains may be getting an unexpected benefit from raising children. So this benefit is protection against aging, the effects of aging on the brain. And this study included 37,000 adults, and it was released by Rutgers and Yale. And it found that parents show patterns of brain connectivity that directly oppose typical age-related changes, with the effect strengthening with each additional child. So basically, the more kids you have, the better off you
So
are.
I have some decades ahead of me.
You have some decades ahead of you. And I mean, basically, from what this is stating, potentially, you may be at a lower risk for like dementia, Alzheimer's, which is great because your brain is working better.
But I feel like I have that now.
Well, it's just a phase.
I feel like juggling between my household and my work household.
Yeah.
I feel sometimes like I have total brain fog.
Yeah, I felt like that.
Total.
I feel like that every day.
I forget things that I need to do at work, or I forget things that I need to take care of for home. And just the cross between the two, it gets overwhelming. But I really think that you can do it.
Yeah. 100%. But, and again, like going back to this is, but it's stating that we technically over time, we should be developing like more, profound brain connections. And they actually found that this study is not only affecting women, it's affecting men too. So like basically fathers who are raising children alongside mothers are also seeing the same effect. So it's showing that it's more of an experience factor versus a biological factor.
Nobody talks about dad guilt. Doesn't that exist?
True. I mean, I think so. I think that even though like we're out there working, I think that men are losing time because I feel like men do go out more, like work more, not work more essentially, but like I feel like a lot of men pick up overtime and additional hours to make up for, let's say, a gap in pay between men and women. But basically, so this study is showing that regions that decrease in function connectivity as individuals age, these are the same regions that are associated with increased connectivity when individuals have had children. So the research analyzed brain scans and family information from the UK Biobank, which is a large-scale biomedical database and research source, and the analysis showed how different brain regions communicate with each other. The team focused particularly on areas involving the movement, sensation, and social connection. And what they found is that parents with more children tended to have stronger connections in key brain networks, especially those involved in movement and sensation. And the same networks typically show decreased connections as people age. Further, they found that assumptions that having children primarily creates stress and strain, which is true in a sense, but there is a silver lining. The research suggests that parenting may provide a form of environmental enrichment that could benefit the brain health through increased physical activity, social interaction, and cognitive stimulation.
Very interesting. We're going to see where this takes us. Because this is a new study and it's not finished yet. I think they're in the middle of the study. So there should be more findings that are going to be coming out eventually. So we're going to keep an eye out on this one. We're gonna definitely star this.
I mean, I do think there's like a higher level of social connection when you have kids because you start kind of hanging out with people maybe that you wouldn't hang out before that have kids in the same age. Like I faced that. Anyone in my friend group that had kids like the same age or even had kids at that point when I had my son. So like I had to like outreach outside, which is how I joined the mom groups. And I did like all these meet and greets and went to like little classes for kids like Mommy and Me. And I met people who I'm still friends with 6 years later.
But not every mom is so social. There are more moms who, tend to stick to themselves. And they feel, I think that being in the home daily, they feel lonely.
Right.
They feel isolated, especially if they're just in home and doing the routine and doing the day-to-day. I feel like they feel isolated and they feel like they're alone, but they're not alone. There's this podcast.
That's true. And actually, I feel like I went through that when I was staying at home. I was like 3 months in. I couldn't even look at my house anymore. I was like, I need to get out somewhere. Like, I need to go. So luckily, I found a group of friends who actually wanted to brunch with alcohol, of course, and bring the children along.
I think that's very important for especially new moms.
Yes.
To socialize and to feel like they are not alone and someone else is going through the same thing.
Exactly.
When you think you're alone, you're like, oh my God, poor me, poor my life.
Right.
How did this happen? And why am I the only one? Once you get out there, you understand that you're not the only one. And you start to feel a little bit less isolated and a little bit more of, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
they're doing it and I can do it and we can all do it together, because sometimes it does take a village. Listen, with my son, he didn't sleep. He didn't sleep, he didn't eat, he didn't do anything except yell. All day, all night. It was a terrible situation. There was a point in time where I remember all morning he would just yell. He was just crying. He was colicky. He was just doing all these like weird things. It was like, and I was by myself. I was alone by myself in this house. I called my mom and I'm like, you have to come and get him now. Like now. Not in an hour, not tomorrow, now. Because if you don't come and get him now, I will kill him. I will kill him. I will go to jail, because I just felt so frustrated and I felt like I was just seeing red. You know, when they say like, you see red, I see red. And at the same time, talk about mom guilt, I was like, he's a baby.
Right.
He doesn't understand. This is not his fault. I'm doing something wrong. I just needed that extra help.
Right.
And I think that's very important when you have that outside, whether it's your family or a social group or work or anything.
Or friends.
That can be like, you're okay. You're doing okay. And sometimes maybe you just need to speak to somebody. I don't want to say like a professional, because, you know.
So then you go for that outside support, even if it's like a parent of yours, and like, oh, don't worry, you did the same thing when you were a kid. But yeah, definitely
But as a professional, you do have to tread very lightly.
Yeah.
With a lot of things, because most children develop within a range. Some children develop a little slower, some develop a little faster, most develop within a range. So you don't want to be too quick and say, oh my God, he's not walking by the time he's 1. So that's it.
Yeah.
We need to get in the specialist and do a whole evaluation. There's something wrong with him. You have to kind of just massage.
Yes.
Especially the new mom. And but there are definitely red flags. And there are definitely early detections.
Yes.
To get all the help that, you know, your child may need. And you are...
Yes, I was in that. Yeah, so my son, like, you know, he started walking late, but, and that's kind of like why we got the evaluation for physical therapy. And, you know, like going to the pediatrician, you're asking these things. Like, and again, this was during COVID. So like we weren't outside of the house much and we weren't going to mommy groups. There were no mom groups. It was like mainly Zoom or whatever you could join. And I was like, this is weird. I'm not doing it.
Listen, try to do some ABA therapy on Zoom.
Yeah. Well, at that point we didn't have ABA therapy yet, but it was kind of like they had like mom groups and like meeting like music together, for example. That was a big one. And they were doing like a Zoom.
Sorry to interrupt you. My favorite was the Zoom PTs.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what do you do? Like, how do you reach through the computer?
I never did one. I never did one, but they did. I think they were like just coaching parents on what to do. I really don't know, because I think an expectation going into physical therapy is that they're going to work with your child and not because you're not a professional. Like I would be scared to turn my child a particular way. Like I don't know what I'm doing. I was holding my son like he was gold. I'm like, I don't even know how to put him down correctly.
I would be scared to like twist and turn the little limb.
Yeah.
Like what happens then?
Yeah, and I think like we have also fear, like going back to the walking, like when they do try to start, and especially as a first-time mom, as a second-time parent, you're like, whatever, they're on their own, they're on their own, you're gonna be fine. But with the first child, you're like so overprotective. Like, what if they fall and bump their head? Yep. Like, and you're always like, oh my God, don't fall. And I think like a lot of the times we're too overprotective, which was another study that was actually done. But mothers are actually more overprotective over their children than men are.
Yes.
And so we're kind of like, I guess, that's coddling them.
Biological in all animal kingdoms.
Yeah. So we're essentially like coddling your children. So that's kind of like what happened to me. And I mean, I guess later on we found that there was an actual diagnosis and everything. But at the time when we were doing the evaluations, we did a referral when he was like 13 months old. So he wasn't walking. And the pediatrician's like, okay, maybe like early intervention. So that's what we did. And it turns out that he could walk. They were like, he could walk. You just have to let him walk. So there were no issues there. We found a plethora of other issues, but that was besides the point. Yeah, I think early detection is important. So I think like everybody should kind of like go out and get an evaluation if you have a concern. But like looking back, even when we did the physical therapy evaluation and after we got the diagnoses and everything, I'm looking back like on videos in my phone and I'm like, okay, he started like military crawl at 9 months. That's kind of like late for a child. And then you pick up like little things that even though you noticed, you're kind of like, okay, maybe he's okay. You don't see other children around you. My mom is telling me you were potty trained by 9 months old. We didn't have diapers.
But again, all these developmental milestones, they need to be taken with a grain of salt
Yeah.
a little bit. Sand, salt, what is it?
Sand, grain of sand. I don't know. Whatever.
But anyway, not everybody goes through each and every step.
Right.
Like my children crawled backwards.
Mhm.
Nobody crawled forward. Just backwards.
Yeah.
They were very quick, but they only crawled backwards. They went from sitting to walking.
Yeah. I heard that a lot too.
My daughter walked before she crawled.
Yeah.
You know, you can't really, it's not
Like a one fits all.
It's not a one fits all for sure, and it's not like written in stone, and you really need to see and speak to everyone around you, not just, you know, your pediatrician and
Right.
not just your girlfriends and not just you need to just gather everything. And I think your best bet is just watching your own child.
I think research helps too.
Bringing whatever concerns you have to a professional.
Yeah.
To a person who is in early childhood
Yes.
development.
Like you.
One of my favorite ones is stop telling your children to say sorry. We're going to cover that one.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot on the gentle parenting aspect, which personally not a fan of, but it floats everybody's boat. I feel like I did the gentle parenting.
Did you?
I did for like a good year.
I would not expect that.
I did. I think it was like when we did the evaluations, right? I felt guilty because I felt like I did something wrong for my child to be this way.
Yeah.
And then you have people coming in and they're kind of telling you redirection, redirection, redirection.
Yeah.
So when you start doing your research, I don't know what it was. Like, I mean, I have some experience. I've worked with children with autism before, but it's very different when it's your own child. Like, you can do things with other people's kids and you're like, okay, this is like, this works for them. And you're sitting down, you're doing puzzles. When it's your own kid, you're lost. And then like hearing all of that.
You know, I don't do homework with my own kids.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I don't think I can because I'm not.
I can do ABA therapy. I can do all sorts of therapy with all the children in the world. I can go into the classroom and do a lesson. I can do all of it. Cannot do homework with my own children.
We haven't got to that part yet, but I don't think I'll be able to do it either because I don't get Common Core math. To
That's
me,
not because I don't get the topic. It's because I can't understand why you don't understand.
Oh.
When I'm working with a child that's not my own, I'm like explaining and I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like you'll get it the next time.
So you're gentle parenting the child.
Not my own.
Right, not your own. So that's what I'm saying.
own.
So that's what I'm saying. When we were doing these things, everybody is like, okay, this is what you have to do. Like, don't, like yelling doesn't work. Like they pick up tones. So I'm like, okay, let me do the gentle parenting. Like I researched it. It was all like, okay, let the child kind of do their own thing. And it turned out horrible because at 2 years old, I had a child who was hitting every single child in his class.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I finally was like, this is not what you do. We're going to stop. No more hitting, and yelled, and that's when things started getting better.
Right.
And like
I don't think it's a one fits all model.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's not a one fits all model. It works for some kids and it works for some families. I think take into consideration what works for you, because only you know really what's best for you and your family.
And sometimes it's good to just, you know, see what's out there and not just stick to one particular model. And try various things. Maybe gentle parenting works. Maybe a mix of things. Not gentle parenting, rough parenting. But it's not rough parenting. But
it depends. I mean, like back in the day, growing up was a different story.
But I also feel back in the day, like we were raised differently.
Yeah. I think a lot of focus now, like kids get a lot of screen time.
Screen time is a terrible idea.
I agree. But I think like a lot of people are utilizing screen time right now because a lot of people are working parents. So if you like look back for...
What do they call them now? Nannies. They're tech nannies.
Tech nannies. So a lot of people have to like go back to putting on the TV. They're getting home from work. They're picking up their kid. most people are getting home at like 6 o'clock, depending where you work, right?
Yeah.
Then it's like dinner time, so you have to cook dinner. What is your child doing, right? So it's hard to.
What do you mean? What are they doing? Puzzles, drawing.
No, I get that, but I'm saying why.
I mean, there's so many things that your child can do and not be on screen time.
Yeah, no,
Parents themselves are on screen time.
it's true.
You're on your phone, you're on your iPad, you're watching a Netflix show, you know. So I think it's a balance between you limiting your screen time
To model the behavior
to
your child.
behavior to the child who you're going to tell, well, you can't have this phone,
Right.
or you can't have this iPad.
Right.
So it's not they can't have it, but you're sitting there at dinner
Exactly.
on your phone. They see it. They're sponges. They want to do what you're doing, especially the little ones. So if you're going to limit their screen time, you have to limit your own.
100%.
No phones at the dinner table. No phones after school. Only phones before bedtime. Although they're now saying that no phones at least half an hour before bedtime.
More. I think it's like an hour now, the latest I've seen, because I cut like screen time completely for my son. Very rarely, occasionally, like if we go out to eat and it's like 2 hours in and he's like, okay, I'm over it, I'll give him like Dave and Ava app where he could just like watch them sing about whatever, ABCs. But like at home, I cut it off. Why? Because even before the study came out, I see a change in my child when he's watching TV for like X amount of time, let's say 2 hours, right? Straight. It's a rainy day. You're like, I don't know what to do with my kid at this point. We've been home all day, so you put on the TV.
Yeah.
And then it's like, then comes bedtime. And then bedtime is a complete disaster because their brain is just like signaling itself, like all the stuff that they see on TV.
It's overloaded.
It's an overload. It's a sensory overload. So then when it comes to bedtime, these kids don't sleep. They don't sleep. And then parents are having a very hard time getting them to bed. And then you're sitting in their room for like 2 hours.
But the sleep therapists are having a lot of business.
They are having a lot of business thanks to the screen time. But I definitely personally see a change. Like when I cut it out completely, it's a completely different child. Like the focus is there, the response is there, like the engagement, trying to engage with you as a parent is there too. Because when they're like occupied with iPad, TV, they don't care where you are. Like you're non-existent to them because they're in a different world. The same way that we are like, I don't know, I find myself like I'm watching Netflix. Let's say I'm not super into what's going on in that show, but I'm the type of person like I can't stop watching a show even if I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like if I started it, I have to finish it.
Too.
So I go on my phone. So then I'm on Reels on Instagram while the show is playing in the background.
You read my mind, because also the screen time that we used to have a couple years ago and the screen time that we have today is a completely different screen time. Today it's 3-second videos, the Reels, the TikToks, the everything else. Their brain is constantly bombarded with new things, quick things. They don't even have the time span to watch a 20-hour cartoon.
Right.
They're not interested today in the cartoons. They're not interested in the sing-along. They're not interested in the read it loud. Why? Because their attention span is 3 to 5 seconds of a TikTok reel or an Instagram reel or whatever it is. And they're constantly, flipping. Screen time is okay, but you have to decide which kind of screen time you're really going to expose your children to. Are you going to expose them to the reels and the jokes and the TikToks, which, in my opinion, just overpower their sensory, their brain, everything? Or are you going to give them, the 20-minute, half an hour cartoon?
Yeah, I think it's like everything in moderation. For sure. Because, I mean, even for adults, I feel like for me personally, I have to put my phone away, like further away from me when I'm going to sleep. Because if I don't, and like, for example, if I can't fall asleep, I usually don't have this problem, but if I do, I will be like, okay, so if I'm like tossing, turning, I can't fall asleep, I grab my phone. That's the first thing I do. And then I'm on Reels. I'm watching Reels. And then it's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Because they're just so, and the AI now, they know what you want to see. And they monitor like everything that you're watching is categorizing into whatever you want to watch. Like even YouTube, it's all of it. the kids are like basically they're pulling our interest, but also these kids who are like, okay, this is what I like, this cartoon, so they're going to show you everything in that genre, and that's what they're going to be watching. So of course they want to be on that versus being on I don't know, doing a puzzle. What's the fun in that? I could watch something fun and find toys for my mom to buy.
Yeah, or buy them myself off Instagram, or TikTok, which is
or Apple.
I knew about Instagram, but I didn't know that you can buy things on TikTok now.
Oh, you can. Well, don't link your card.
Yeah, but when you have that family plan,
oh, it buys automatic.
It buys.
So it's through Apple. It's through the phone.
Yes.
They could just double click and that's it.
My daughter bought a bunch of glue-on nails
wow.
from TikTok.
Did they work? Did you try them?
No. My husband was like, what is this charge? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even have TikTok.
And then
he saw that it was her that bought it because it connects the phone number or whatever. And he's like, what did you buy for? I mean, it was like $35. And I'm like, and she's like, oh, just nails. So,
did you get them though? Did they come?
No.
Oh.
I don't even know if it's a real thing. Or she just like sent $35 to China. I don't know. But also, I read something a couple of weeks ago that you're supposed to let your child be bored.
Yeah.
Like you're not supposed to entertain them. Like you are not supposed to find activities for them to do all the time, 24/7. And if you see that they're bored, you're not supposed to like find play gyms and Saturday afternoon excursions and all these things that you're like dragging them around from here and there. They're supposed to be bored because that's when they start to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
And they start to plan and they start to engage themselves. A lot of children are not pretend playing because why do I need to pretend play? When, if I sit here long enough or I bother my mother long enough, she's going to take me to the mall.
Yeah.
Or she's going to take me out for pizza or whatever else because now I'm annoying and I'm just going to be more annoying. So we can go faster. Whereas they're saying that if you let your child just sit there by themselves, and figure out that, wait a minute, I have these toys, they could do something. Like I can play house or I can play doctor or I can do something and maybe get my imagination. And over a period of time, children are coming back to pretend play. If you just allow them to just use their own minds.
I mean, once I took away the screen time, obviously, like, I don't have time to entertain you 24/7, but I do, like, on the weekends, I do plan something in the morning, like early, like 10 to 12.
Yeah, but it's not an all-day activity. It's
no, I don't do the whole, no. After we're done with one activity, I'm done too for the day. But, like, ever since it's taken away the screen time aspect, I did put in like a swing in the house. We had a trampoline and like a lot of toys that he really just wasn't playing with. I did find that he is like sort of entertaining himself.
Yeah.
So he'll like go on his swing, then he'll take his Tony's box with all the characters, switch out the characters,
That's exactly
play with his toys. And it actually, so I do agree with that definitely, letting them kind of like figure it out on their own.
Because like we're keeping them busy, just like these TikToks.
I think
that's all we're doing. We're just keeping them busy.
But I think that a lot of that has to go back to mom guilt because like I feel like a lot of the time when you're working all week, you feel guilty that you're not doing additional things with your child, perhaps. Like maybe. And then on the weekend, it's kind of like an overload. You see a cool thing because these advertisements, once they know you have a child, you will be getting invitations to pretty much everything that's happening in your area. So you see something cool, you're like, okay, I want to go here, I want to go there, I want to go here. Then your friend is like, let's go here. And at the end of the day, you're like out from, I don't know, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and you're like all day, but it's a lot. It's a lot of activities.
Has your child gotten advantage from all these things?
No, just exposure to the outside world, I guess.
Yeah, just dragging him around so he doesn't scream, he doesn't yell, and he's just like, he has something to do. You've satisfied your mom's guilt, of course, because look at all this time I'm spending with my child. But is it quality time? Is it really like developing the child? Will they remember it a week from now? No, probably because not. A week from now they'll be like, so what are we doing this weekend?
Right.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
What do you mean we're not going anywhere? Let's go to the mall. What do you need at the mall? Well, let's just go.
To buy stuff. To buy stuff. To buy more toys.
Let's see what we can
Yeah.
find. Like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they can actually play a scavenger hunt at home.
Yeah.
Just have to use
your imagination.
And be bored a little bit.
Yeah. Hop back in. We're talking about all these childhood things. Let's get back to the sandwich debate.
Oh, the great
sandwich debate of triangles, squares, and how to get your child to actually eat. Because I think everybody's like struggling with that.
You mean how to fish out the broccoli?
Yes, that too.
Or to tell them that's not really broccoli.
That's not really broccoli. Well, it could also be a foreign substance that they threw in while they were not eating the broccoli, but that's a different topic altogether.
We're just not going to cover that one yet.
So I think I see a lot, like everybody's struggling right now with feeding. I was just at an open house for my son for school, and this was literally every parent, when they were asking about questions, they asked about lunch. This particular school does not provide lunch, so you have to pack your own food. But everybody's like, oh my God, but what if my child very picky eating? Like, what if they're only eating this? What if they're only eating that? And I see this a lot on Facebook too, in the groups. They're like, my child is so picky. So there's actually and I did the whole feeding therapy with my son, because it was it could be chewing, it could be pickiness, it could be how do you get your child to eat. And this is all linked to behavior. For the most part, unless your child really has feeding difficulties with chewing and swallowing, otherwise it's all behavioral, how to get your child to eat. So that's to get back to that, you have to start working on the why are they not eating.
So I didn't start out as the ultimate child development guru. A lot of it was from my own experience. A lot of it was from when I worked with multiple children in a classroom setting. A lot of it was when I worked one-on-one in therapy. A lot of it was just watching the classrooms in the early childhood centers that we own. Feeding is a very big topic. And honestly, if they don't want it, you just substitute it. It's okay.
As long as they're
getting they're getting their vitamins, they're getting their nutrients. They are not going to starve. If your child doesn't like apples, they like bananas, it's okay to give them bananas. Okay, they're going to get sick of the bananas. I promise you that they will eventually not want the bananas and move on to eating apples. Those apples that you're trying to stuff down them, they're going to get to it. I think children oftentimes like variety, but it has to look a certain way.
Right.
It has to smell a certain way. Since we start off feeding children by giving it to them to their fingers, it has to feel a certain way. Mm-hmm. Some children have, sensory issues, so they don't want the cheese because it feels slimy, it feels jello-y, it feels like it's a piece of Play-Doh. They don't want it. So don't give them the squishy cheese. Give them the harder cheese. Maybe they can do that. A lot of children don't like the feeling of something wet. So make sure you're drying the apple before you're giving it to them. Just watch them.
Yeah.
Just watch them, see what they're doing. And I promise you, if they're not going to eat the soup.
So it's been a long week.
Hasn't it?
It has. And I think tonight we all deserve some Netflix and wine. And cheese. So I'm actually excited. There's an episode coming out today for Love is Blind. Have you watched it?
You lost me there.
Okay, so it's a show, basically. It's like a dating reality show. So the reason why they call it Love is Blind is because they're talking to each other through a wall. So it's basically, there's a group of men and women who go into this, it's an experience, it's a social experiment. They go on to the show and they have what's called the pods. So they go into these...
The wall isn't enough, they need pods?
So they're in these pods. So the pods are basically little rooms that are set up with a couch, and in the middle of the room, there's this wall that you can't see through, and they talk to each other through this wall. So the reason for the experiment is that they're supposed to fall in love with each other, with their personalities versus with what they look like.
How'd that work out?
Well, this is season 8.
Is anyone together?
There's actually 2 couples that actually lasted and had babies. So I guess it kind of works. Yeah, there's
what are they doing now?
Well, not Love is Blind anymore because they're together already. I think they're just living together. But basically so they're talking through a wall, right? And then they do a reveal, so they see each other for the first time.
So what happens if I fall in love with this person that I've
Right.
never seen. But
And then you
I
see-
just like, hear them. I'm assuming some of them got game.
Yes.
So what happens if, let's say, I fall in love with this person, and now and they fell in love with me, and now
They propose to you. So
They
they propose.
propose to me.
So basically, after the proposal, you have 3 weeks to get married.
How
they
many
actually do a wedding.
episodes are in this show?
Usually like 10.
So
but
10 weeks.
It's actually 3 weeks, but they break it up into like 10 episodes. What's your idea of Netflix and chill?
Oh no. Can discuss this on this podcast. You know what shows I like? I like the mini movie shows.
Yes.
Not like season after season after season after season. Like
the limited series.
Yeah, the limited series. Like you watch 10 episodes, things happen.
And there's a closing point.
Clean break.
Yeah.
And then you're on to the next one. This whole like season. The only show that I ever watched season after season religiously every Sunday was Game of
Thrones. Everybody.
Every Sunday, I am not into this whole sci-fi, mythical creatures and all this nonsense. But that show, like the flying dragons, but that show, literally, every Sunday, the world died.
Yes, I agree. I was also
died.
very into it. I did also watch that True Blood. True Blood was good.
No, I'm telling you, that's the only show I've ever really stuck to. Season after season after season.
It was a good show.
And then since then, I really nothing caught my eye as far as multiple season shows.
Yeah.
I mean, Yellowstone was good.
Yellowstone was good.
But that's not on Netflix.
No.
And I didn't see the last season, so I really don't
I
know.
got halfway
I don't know
through.
if Jamie went to the
dark side.
I don't know if Jamie is in the train tracks. I'm not sure.
I got halfway through and then I fell asleep. We watched several episodes. I fell asleep and then my husband just watched the whole show through.
I just feel that sometimes when they get rid of a main character, the show ends.
It dies. Well, that is the last episodes for Yellowstone.
So that's my whole thing, especially if it's like a relatable character, or if it's a character that makes the show.
Yeah.
Then the whole show just.
Yeah.
They switch it up. They try to bring in better cast. They try to all these turns and all these things happen, but no.
Yeah, I agree.
I lose interest. But I have to watch to the end like you.
Yeah.
I have to read to the end. I have to watch to the end. One eye can be watching.
Yeah.
The other eye is scrolling, reels, obviously. TikTok, reels, whatever. But one eye is watching to the end.
Thank you for joining us on the first episode of Mom in the City. And if you like the first episode, please subscribe and share with other moms who know that life didn't end when the Sex in the City did. Because let's face it, nobody told us there was ever going to be a sequel.
Thank you for joining us. First episode of Mom in the City, where we talk about business, career, being a mother, parenting, development, children, childcare. You can follow us on Instagram. We'd love to hear from you. You can leave us a question or a comment. Let us know what topics you want to discuss, and we'll be sure to address them or cover them. Maybe even make a little fun. And once again, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you soon.